Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Baseline. Today, we're going to be talking about Harvard versus Trump and the student visa showdown that could reshape American power in relation to how it deals with universities. So, you're going to want to sit down for this one, guys. The United States government, our government, just blocked Harvard University from enrolling international students. So, let that sink in for just a second. Not because Harvard committed a crime, not because of fraud, not even because of some scandal, but it ended up because they refused to let the federal government, specifically the Trump administration, dictate who they hire, who they admit, and who they are allowed to teach. So, this isn't a movie. This is actually happening within our university system. And as it happens, it's happening to Harvard. Now, it's not just about Harvard, though. It's about every school, every student, every one of us who gives a damn about education, right? Freedom of thought, or even just a functioning democracy. Because now, if you're thinking, well, wait, what? What the heck just happened? Don't worry, I got you on this. We're going to dive a little bit deeper as we go. So grab your drink, hit that like button, and drop a comment on your opinion in regards to this drama that's going on between Harvard and the Trump administration. So let's rewind for just a second. The Trump administration has had Harvard in its crosshairs for just a minute now. Why? Because Harvard said no. They said no to hiring MAGA-friendly faculty and no to adjusting their admissions process for ideological diversity, which is just a fancy way of saying put more of our own people in your school or else. And Harvard, what did they do? They didn't even flinch. You got to respect these guys. They stood their ground. They said, nah, that's not how this is going to work. That's not how any of this works. And this is what's going to happen next. And then, boom, the Department of Homeland Security, under Trump's direction, stripped Harvard of its SEVP certification. Now, I know what you're thinking. SEVP, what? It's the government's stamp of approval that says, yep, this school can enroll international students. Now, take that away, and guess what happens? Harvard can't issue student visas anymore. That means thousands of students from China, India, Iran, Brazil, they're just gone. They can't come. They can't stay. And these are people who are starting to be lawyers, doctors, and they're investing in the American dream. So students who already moved here, now they have to transfer schools. Now imagine that. You're halfway through a master's degree at Harvard. 2 years of your life, tens of thousands of dollars, and now you're being told, hey, sorry, Harvard's not certified anymore. You got to go. It's not like they can just hop over to Yale or Stanford or MIT or anything like that. It's too late in the year. The seats are full and visa deadlines are basically done. And let me tell you why this really matters. Because this isn't just about a couple of Ivy League students being inconvenienced. This is about the actual playbook. This is about how power gets used, how policy can become punishment. And this is a full-blown political hit job dressed up as visa technicality. You guys kind of get my drift of what I'm saying here. This is about sending a message: comply or be crushed. Do what we say or else. And that's where these two powers are now clashing between Harvard and the government. And we've seen this play out before, not just in education. Look at what's happening to Media Matters. Look at what happened to USED. And look at what's going down in the courts right now. It's the same pattern. choke the lifeline, disrupt the flow, apply pressure until institutions break or bow. But here's what makes Harvard's case so wild. It's not like they broke any law. There wasn't even a warning letter, no formal violation, no due process, which is such an important part of the American legal infrastructure, right? The concept of due process, because it's meant to protect the innocent, not just go after the guilty, right? So that being said, they have no formal violation, no due process, and DHS just yanked their certification. So no time to appeal, no chance to fix, just a slap across the face during peak admission season. That is pretty nuts. And it's like walking into your final exam, sitting down, opening up your laptop, and the school tells you, actually, you don't go here anymore. You're not certified. Get out. Now, look, I'm not saying Harvard is perfect. Let's be real. They've got more money than a lot of small countries do. They're going to survive. But what about every other college and university that can't afford a legal team of 12? What about the community colleges, the grad schools, the schools with tight budgets and even tighter deadlines? So this could set a terrifying precedent for those institutions. And you better believe that if they can do it to Harvard, they can do it to anyone. If they're willing to do it to Harvard, they're willing to do it to anyone. So it's really an interesting time. So, all right, I want you to really think about this next part here. International students don't just fill classrooms. They fuel the education system. They pay full tuition, no discounts, no scholarships. That money helps fund need-based aid for students right here in the United States. So when you gut the international enrollment, you're not just slamming the door on foreign students. You are also cutting financial aid for American students too. You're crippling the entire machine. So you know what this reminds me of? It's like cutting off your power because you didn't like the color of the light bulbs. It's petty, it's dangerous, it affects a lot of people, American citizens included, and it's already doing real damage. Because international students, they're already jumping ship. I talked to a student from Jordan, and she had a visa appointment schedule. Her bags packed, her whole family planning a send-off. And then she gets the email, visa canceled, certification revoked, Harvard is no longer eligible. That's what she said. And she also said, and this was really hard to hear, she said, I feel like my dream died in an inbox. And honestly, it's hard to even know what to say. I didn't have any good response, and other than to just really feel bad for her, because this isn't about rules. It seems to be about revenge. And if we don't call it out now, if we don't speak up while the hammer's still in the air, then the next school or the next student or the next person you care about might be the one that ends up getting smashed. So we're just getting started here, guys. Coming up next, I'm going to break down the lawsuit Harvard just filed. And let me tell you guys, it's bold, it's aggressive, and it might be the last stand for academic freedom in the United States. So stay with me with this, okay? We're going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And so let's talk about this lawsuit. Harvard fired back, and not with a press release or the behind-the-scenes diplomacy. They went full scorched earth. They sued the Department of Homeland Security, sued the Trump administration, and sued the decision to revoke their international student certification. And here's the wild part. It's not just paperwork battle. This lawsuit is a constitutional cannon aimed straight at the White House right now. And the core of Harvard's argument, simple. This isn't about immigration. This is about retaliation. They're saying you're punishing us because we said no. No to hiring your people. No to admitting your political base. No to bending the knee. And if you think that's a stretch, wait till you hear what the Trump administration demanded before this whole mess started. They literally sent Harvard a list of hiring recommendations. Faculty they thought would be more aligned with the current American vision. Now ask yourself, what kind of government sends universities lists of people they want to hire? Now that's not freedom. A lot of people would say that that's fascism with a PowerPoint. In Harvard, to their credit, man, they refused. And they told the administration, we don't play political puppets. Not now, not ever. And boom, when that hammer dropped, they didn't get sanctioned. They didn't get fined. They got defunded. So that visa pipeline cut international enrollment, and it got torpedoed. It's like telling a hospital, you didn't vote for the mayor, so we're turning off your oxygen supply. So that's not policy, that's a shakedown. Now in the lawsuit, Harvard is pulling out the big guns. They're invoking the First Amendment. That's right, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom from government coercion. They're saying this is an ideological punishment, that the government is retaliating against them for not falling in line. And they're not just pointing at Trump. They're pointing at the Department of Homeland Security, at Kristi Noem, at every agency who's ever whispered, pull their funding. So this lawsuit, it's not just about Harvard's survival. It's about whether academic freedom can exist in America under an authoritative or authoritarian regime. So let that sink in for a moment, because the minute universities become government mouthpieces, the minute dissent means decertification, that's not America anymore. That's not education. That's indoctrination. So let me tell you why this moment matters more than people realize. Because international students don't just bring money, they bring minds. They bring research, innovation, culture, perspective. They fill in the STEM labs, the think tanks, the future biotech firms. Do you know how many international students go on to become engineers in Silicon Valley and doctors in rural hospitals, professors in colleges across the Midwest? And now because of this, they're looking elsewhere. And here's the worst part. They're looking elsewhere, meaning other countries to take their talent to. So who's going to benefit? Canada, Australia, Germany. They are all welcoming these guys with open arms. Meanwhile, we're slamming the door shut like paranoid landlords yelling, "No outsiders allowed." You don't just lose revenue that way, you lose your edge. I mean, we have to be real about this. America didn't become a superpower by building walls. It became one because it opened the doors and let the world's best minds in. So when you block those students, you're not just hurting Harvard, you're hurting the entire country. We're talking about the next vaccine developer, the next Nobel Prize winner, the next climate change scientists. They're all gone, and gone to other countries that are going to now have this cutting edge technology from these bright minds that are coming in, all because someone in power got butthurt over a rejection letter. That is not a workable situation. And here's what's even darker. They're doing this with surgical precision. No angry tweets, no primetime announcements. They're just quietly pulling strings behind the scenes, using administrative tools, exploiting technicalities, making policy feel like paperwork. But it's not paperwork, it's sabotage. And that brings us to the part no one wants to say out loud. This isn't about national security. It's about control. Here's where this goes from dangerous to straight up dystopian. The Trump administration isn't just targeting Harvard. They're targeting independence itself. So let me try to explain this right. At the same time Harvard situation's unfolding, the Supreme Court just quietly, and I mean quietly, signaled they're ready to overturn a nearly 90-year-old legal precedent called Humphrey's executor. Now, that might sound like some law school trivia, but trust me, it's not. Humphrey's executor is the backbone of agency independence in America. It's what says, hey, Mr. President, you can't just fire people because they don't like their vibe. You can't fire people from independent government boards just because you got your feelings hurt. It protects regulators from becoming political yes men. So what happens if they overturn it? Well, kiss agency independence goodbye. You could see presidents firing Federal Reserve members at will, packing boards, installing loyalists, gutting checks and balances in real time. And guess what? They've already started doing it. 2 board members, one from the National Labor Relations Board and another from the Merit Systems Protection Board, were just fired. No cause, no process. So what did they do? They sued, and lower courts ruled in their favor. Now, Trump appealed, and the Supreme Court, they sided with Trump. No full hearing, no oral arguments, just a 2-paragraph order saying, yeah, fire him. So let me ask you something. If you can't fire, or if you can fire independent regulators with no explanation, no hearing, no accountability, what happens to the truth? What happens to the people who try to stand up to power? Well, we've seen in other countries that are more dictatorships or draconian, those people who try to stand up to power, they end up disappearing quietly, efficiently, and now legally. So now let's zoom back out. Because while we're talking about Harvard and the Supreme Court rulings, something much bigger is happening underneath it all. The institutions we thought that were safe, the ones that were built to resist a dictatorship, now they're being dismantled. And one subtle move at a time. Not with tanks in the streets, not with military coups, but with procedural abuse, with administrative backdoors. So with lawsuits, with visa denials, with silent firings and secret memos, they're not burning books. They're reclassifying them. They're not banning dissent. They're calling it noncompliance. And they're not jailing journalists. They're just yanking licenses, cutting funding, and labeling them as threats. And that's how authoritarianism shows up in a democracy. It doesn't happen with a scream, but with a shrug. And unless we start calling this out for what it is, unless we say, hey, I see what you're doing there, the next target isn't going to be Harvard. It could be you. All right, so let's try to bring all of this in. This is what we know. Harvard refused to play political puppet, and the Trump administration retaliated. The Department of Homeland Security pulled their certification to enroll international students, and Harvard sued. And now We're about to watch one of the biggest legal battles over academic freedom play out in real time. But this isn't just about courts or campuses. It is about control. Control over who gets to speak, who gets to think, who gets to learn. And we've got a choice here. Do we silently, as institutions, get strangled into submission? Or do we step up and say, no, not on our watch? Because here's the truth. If we let this moment slide, if we let fear dictate who deserves an education, then we're not just losing students, we're losing not to sound over dramatic, but we're losing the soul of this country. So I want to hear from you right now. Drop a comment below. Should schools stand their grounds and fight, or is it safer to comply and survive? And if this episode has lit a fire, share it. Send it to someone who needs to know the truth behind the headlines. And of course, we'd always be honored if you like and subscribe to the channel. So next week, we're going to be diving into the Supreme Court and how might they be quietly erasing the last line of defense between democracy and dictatorships. Let's not miss it. Okay. So thank you again, guys, for watching the Baseline. I really appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next round. Okay. Cheers, everybody. Thanks.